graduated. So how does it feel to be back here where it all started?
Well, it actually feels wonderful. Thank you so much, in having us here, and especially, it, it actually feels extremely nostalgic because this is all where it started for us. The journey, which I believe all of you are also going to embark in some more time. So it definitely feels wonderful, and meeting some of our old batchmates and then some of our seniors, who are definitely, so as much as it's a learning for you guys, it's also a learning for us, interacting with all of you, giving our feedback in terms of how management education and XIMB as a brand, can do better with time. So it does feel wonderful.
Sir, you have more than a decade of experience in various industries, including retail banking, risk advisory, and now you are the business head of Cigna India. So, how has this tremendous journey actually helped you over the years?
Uh, well, I mean, see, the corporate business world is an extremely dynamic environment, and what you learn in a B school basically is the hard part. Is the quantifiable part of it. When you actually go out there, it's the qualitative part, which is basically the soft part. Which is what I also mentioned in my talk. Uh, I think when I joined, one of the things which I decided that I should definitely do is uh, I had an agenda that I should move through different experiences, different kinds of roles, because when I start to consolidate, which is probably now onwards when I start to consolidate and look at the remaining 20 25 years of my career, I should know exactly where I should be heading and what I'm specializing in, and what is the rest of my career has in store for me. So this 15 years has been more of a learning for me, moving across different industries. So whether it started with the with Jubilant, which was more into trade of so logistics management and supply chain management and all those kind of things. From there, moving into retail banking, which was the BFSI segment, a sunshine industry at that point in time in 2004-5. The kind of learning that you get, working in a retail banking environment, which wanted to emulate the FMCG sales model, which was like surprising, So how can you make finance, lending kind of work so much close to an FMCG, which is more like distribution, right? But I think at the end of the day, it was more around how do you make your product or service much more meaningful and accessible, to the end customer. So I think that was a great learning with the banking industry, and there I worked both on the secured asset lending as well as the unsecured asset lending. So that kind of completed that circle. And as the financial downturn was kind of coming in, I was lucky to get an opportunity to move into the corporate side of business. So I've done the retail side, and I always wanted to get on the corporate side because somehow I felt my personality kind of aligned to that domain. And the opportunity that came my way was in the insurance industry, which happened with the world's largest risk consulting firm, Marsh and McLennan Companies. And I joined in there as a client service head for the region, for the southern region. But then, as I moved in within a month or two, I said that, well, client service is good, but I'm a business development guy. I want to get into business development. So one of the challenges which immediately was presented is you don't know the insurance industry. And this is not just insurance the way we know insurance in India, which is pure retail insurance, life insurance, and health insurance, all that. This was hardcore corporate commercial insurance. You're talking to companies, talking about their business risks, talking about there's risk of sending their goods across the world. You're talking about going to a port and talking about their liabilities. You're going to an airline company and talking about their aircraft, hull risk. So, for example, you had a Spice Jet which got stuck in mud, in the recent rains in Mumbai. So, what is the risk? The risk, so there's a different perspective of looking at risk. So that was a huge learning for me. And within that domain, I started specializing, because I was in Bangalore, and it was a huge IT and ITS market. The biggest risk which companies in the immediate vicinity where I was located was facing is human capital risk. So they were dealing with large number of people, and They didn't have any, factories, they didn't have any plants, machinery and all that. They had people, right? And they had huge number of people located in small places, a small place in the sense one location, 1,000, 2,000, 4,000, 10,000 people, and people moving across the world. Okay, so it's a very different kind of a risk where these companies need to be agile in protecting, the risk that emanates from this population of highly talented human resources, and the biggest risk that they had is the risk of which you expose them to is the risk of health. Okay, the risk of accidents, the risk of life, and when you have an Indian, typical Indian, when you look at an Indian traveling from India, let's say into a US or to an European market or to Australia, you are actually exposing a person who has grown up in a very different environment, rather I should say an underdeveloped health environment. We don't study insurance, health and all that in our schools or anywhere. So the knowledge of risk insurance in a typical Indian person is very, very low. Okay, so from that market, you are now exposing him to a market which is absolutely developed, absolutely process driven in terms of how you access, healthcare, how you access hospitals, how you access doctors, and you have this Indian and this Indian comes with the knowledge that if something goes wrong with me, the first thing is I do self-medication. The other thing that I do is I go to the nearest available hospital. So for us, hospital is hospital. Okay. Now in a US kind of a market, there are different layers. Okay. So you have the first layer is the GP, general practitioner. Move to the primary layer, the secondary layer. Then you have the tertiary care. Then you have emergency. Then you have palliative care. So it's a charting out of the entire health risk from a provider access perspective. So that was a huge learning. And outside of India, payment to healthcare always happens through insurance. Okay, so insurance has a very, very big role outside of India in affecting employee lives and employee productivity, employee costs than it is in India. So that I realize is another specialization which is not really available as a intellectual capital in India. I said, let me just start developing my skill set around that, and that ensured that today that has got developed as my core competence, and which is again very, very important. So now when you look at that 15-year journey that I've had since passing out of XIMB, one was gaining through corporate experiences, different kinds of industry sectors that you work in. Then over the last 10 years, kind of trying to figure out one industry, within that industry figuring out what is relevant and what kind of aligns with what I really want to do, and also trying to understand, is this the kind of business I will remain invested in for the rest of my life? Okay, so I think that is my journey. So from here, for the next at least another decade, I know this is the sector that I'm going to operate in, and within this sector probably I'll keep growing in this sector. Okay, so that's been my journey.
So what was the role of XIMB in this journey?
So XIMB's role is a multifaceted role. So I think like any other B school student, when I joined XIMB in 2001, it was a career choice which is made amongst so many other things that are available, typically to an Indian student at that point in time. Probably there are much more today. So that time, the career choice I had was whether I should join the defense forces, and you would have seen in my background, I invested a lot in building my, capabilities and knowledge around trying to join the Air Force. I had got through also, but then because the Kargil war happened that time, my family did not allow me to join. So what was the next other choice? Okay, and my mentor at that point in time was a senior pilot, in the Air Force. So he said the next best thing, Nilanjan, looking at you and your personality, is to get into the corporate world. So, and I said that I don't know anything about nothing, because it's so difficult because I've never studied economics. I was a science student. I'd never studied accounting, finance. Okay, softer parts you can take care of, the communication and this and that. That's all okay. But the hard, knowledge was never there. So the biggest apprehension that I had was, fine, it is exciting to join a great B school. So obviously I chose XIMB because one, it was in Bhubanewar, and I had the opportunity to live close to my parents. At the same time, I also had this brilliant opportunity to be in a residential management course, because One thing which I always wanted to do was, if I was attending any professional oriented course, I should be in a residential program, because you learn much more being inside a campus rather than being a day scholar, moving in, moving out. You don't learn because probably 25% of your or 30% of your daily the time that you have in a day goes only in traveling in and traveling out. Okay, so that was very important. So I think being in a place like Bhubaneshwar, XIMB had carved out a niche for itself in this part of the country in being a premier B school. So that was the first stamp that I got. So XIMB helped me in that way immensely. So the moment within my friend circle and my family, when they got to know that I'm joining XIMB, so there was this positive branding that I got, which was great, because when you go back to your friends or your family, they're like, okay, yeah, he studies in exam, so that's a big thing, So, and I believe that this probably would also hold true in the corporate world. Okay, so that was the first one, the positive branding of studying in a premier B school. That was the first thing that was provided by XIMB. The second thing which was provided by XIMB was that the way the entire curricula was designed, it was a extremely intensive program, but at the same time it was very to the point. Okay, so there was a good interspersion of the practical aspect of learning along with the theoretical aspect. The schools like XIMB and XLRI, the Jesuit run schools, they do a very good job in imparting good theoretical knowledge. They may not have so much of the practical side which probably the IIMs and all would have, but then I believe the kind of students that come into XIMB were typically students like me, with relatively no such background of working, or even if we would have worked, we would have not worked in the kind of environment where you could say that yes, you've really had a work experience. So the theoretical aspect was good because it was kind of keeping us aligned to the kind of environment we came from, which was purely theoretical up to graduation, right? The practical aspect, because it got interspersed, it helped us appreciate the theory much better. So when you're studying something like accounts, when you don't understand what is a profit loss balancing, the only thing that you would have ever balanced is probably I was a basketball player, the ball on the fingers. So it's like balancing of balance sheet is like, it was a unique concept, but the way the professors made it easy, that okay, this is why you do it, this is how you this is the hard part of it, this is the engine, this is how companies work, this is what goes inside, this is the science behind it. So that, like, okay, that is relevant. Okay, so let me, then that is when you start taking interest. I may not have excelled and got an A++, but at least even if I got a B plus or a B or a B plus, it was good enough, because that is, I felt apt, because it kind of gave me that knowledge, the quant part of it, the hard part of it. At the same time, living in the campus, interacting with students from various walks of life. We were not a large group as you are today. We were a much smaller group. We just had 2 sections and 120 students and seniors. But the sheer depth of backgrounds, so you had people from different, as in students from different backgrounds. You had the usual suspects were the engineers, but engineers coming from different kinds of colleges, right from the IITs to the the BITS. That time there was RSC, which is NIT now, to the local engineering colleges. You had toppers from these colleges, So, and you had the university graduates, coming in from Delhi and all, St. Stephens and all that, and then you had people who are chartered accountants, So it was it was like a multicultural, multi-background kind of a mix. And when you work with them on projects, and I think the professors ensured that every group there was a good mix. It was not just a random mix, it was a good mix where people, as in students from different kinds of background, were put in one group. Okay, so for example, if it was a finance or a accounts project, you definitely had somebody who had a BCom background, or at least some kind of an accounting background, who was like the the must. And then you had people like us all around. But it was a marketing kind of a thing, so probably somebody like me is the must, and then you had the others around us. So that was a great learning, because that helped me learn how to deal with variety. Okay, which is basically what we call in our world as complexity, the human nature's complexity, because we are all humans, right? So we are not machines, right? So everybody has an individual personality, a trait. How do you work with that? Okay, so something I like, you may not like, he may not like, but how do, and we are part of a team, how do we ensure that we are aligned? Okay, so that was the second big aspect which was there. And the final was, it was not only work, it was a lot of fun. I was the culsec of the batch, and what and I think that had a tremendous amount of positive exposure that was given to me, that it gave to me, which was more in terms of coordination, event management, okay, basically scheduling. It was brilliant, so we also did a business excellence award that point in time, but that was done during expressions. But the way we kind of reached out to the B school community across India, 18 B schools participating, ensuring that they, and you had folks coming in from Ahmedabad also, Micah and I am Ahmedabad. How do you ensure logistics? They are coming by train, you didn't have flights. So all of those things, then are the cultural side of it, artist coordination. You have very different kind of people coming, singers coming in. So that was a holistic kind of a experience, which is more on the extracurricular side. So all of these things put together, when I kind of moved in into the corporate world, I moved in completely armed. I felt reassured that yes, I'm ready to take in what comes my way.
Sir, you are a private pilot and glider pilot license holder, and also recipient of Indian Defence Minister's Commendation Medal, Governor's Gold Medal, and NCC certificate. So, how did you manage to keep up with this passion along with the MBA course and now the empowering corporate life?
So what I always believe, because of my, extremely good background with the defense forces, with NCC though, but then because I was a senior cadet and I was I was representing the state of Odisha. So I had a very different kind of exposure in terms of getting selected for, commando training camps, basic leadership camps, which is basically what the kind of training which cadets at the IMA, Indian Military Academy, or the Indian Air Force Academy get. It's probably 10% of that intensity, but still it's an exposure. So, and then what, so that actually helped me in a way where I could see the similarities between the defense, science of defense and the science of management. It's very same. Okay, so there they teach you the skills, and they also teach you the soft skills, which is the strategy part of it, battleground strategy. And then they send you to the battleground, but then obviously in the battleground nothing happens by the rule book. But when you are there, that knowledge helps you take the right decisions. And management was something like that. So I started viewing management as something very similar to that, and kind of took it. I had my tough times, in some of the courses which I had no exposure to. So I was obviously not flunking, but I was not doing that well. But then with every such failure or a disappointment, I was like, okay, I need this because I need to be successful there, and that pulled me back. So midterm probably I did bad, but by the time I came to final term, I was reasonably good. But yeah, I'm in terms of the flying thing, I really haven't flown since I got my private pilot license. The only way I kind of keep in touch with that is I have a whole lot of friends who are pilots in India and abroad. And I keep talking to them, I keep meeting them at every given point in time. One of my friends, actually a senior, he was the first Indian origin pilot to fly an A380. And he was the first pilot, commercial pilot, to fly an A380. He works for Singapore Airlines. So whenever I'm in Singapore, we try to meet up, and whenever he probably lands in whichever city I am, he gives me a call and we kind of meet up, so they don't get time because they need to rest. But that's my only attachment that I have, and I do a lot of. So you ask me anything about aircraft flying and all, I would be able to kind of rattle off. So that's the only way I can. This is an expensive hobby to keep in India, so I have not really cultivated it as a hobby, but it's more like keep myself informed and all that. And another thing which really I still carry with me to date is that 3 years with NCC, taught me the value of being fit, physically fit. and that is something that I kind of maintain even till this day. Okay, so I'm getting happy when I hear some of the old staff in XIMB, they're just recognizing me and saying, so you haven't changed. Okay, so which is a good thing, because being fit in the corporate world, physically fit in the corporate world, is very, very important. Today, leaders are selected not because of what they have done, but how they conduct themselves, how they look. Okay, which is the grooming part of it, which Professor Iwakuma teaches. Okay, is very, very important, because that is something that shows class. Okay, so yeah, so that's basically where I am today.
Sir, do you have any advices for our present batch on how to face the world?
The world outside is an ever-changing world. So, to all my, student friends at XIME, my juniors, uh, the first thing I would say is try and develop, a great amount of self-confidence. You are in a good institution. The institution is doing all it can to ensure that you get the right exposure as a B-school student in the field of management and management education. So that should help you create a great deal of self-confidence that yes, I am getting myself armed to face the uncertainties of the complex world outside. Okay, so try to build that, because at the end of the day, if you don't have self-confidence, you will not have motivation. Okay, and nobody and sometimes management students and management graduates forget that it is not about money only. Okay, so money is just one aspect of the job, of basically your profession. The main aspect of your profession is in the management world, in the business world, nothing is structured. It is not that, like, it's not a government job. You just don't go in and then over time you have your raises, increases. You are in the world, which talks about profitability. You're talking about businesses which exist to make money. Yeah, there may be NGOs also, but then even they have a task at hand. Okay, so every day that goes by, when you're working 40 hours, you're working in a week, you have to understand that 40 hours, okay, is when you need to be self-motivated to do what you have to do, and do it so well that it will be a benchmark. And to do that, you need to be self-motivated. You need to have that self-confidence. Don't fear anything. You are good. Everybody has in themselves to be a great person. Okay, it's just a matter of finding it within yourself. Okay, that's the first thing I would say. The second thing is always focus on skilling yourself. So just having a degree from a good B school is not everything. It is good for your first job. It is good probably for the next 5 years. But please understand, in 5 years, everything in the management world, in the business world will change. And it is changing so fast, we don't even know what's going to happen next. Okay, so while we are coping with we were coping with internet. While internet happened, the apps came in, and while the apps came in, the digital world started playing havoc with everything. So you've seen how banking has changed overnight. Nobody goes to a bank branch. I haven't been to a bank branch in probably the last 5-6 years. I do everything online. Okay, so you don't even have to take out cash. Everything is available. So digital has kind of disrupted the markets in such a way that a lot of things have become simpler for the end consumer, but for managers it has become equally a scary situation, because job redundancies are going on. And while you are trying to cope up with digital and the good things about digital, AI is coming in.
Yes.
Okay, that is going to disrupt in a very, very different way. So it's basically whether I should have a bullet train or whether I should do hyperloop. So one is investing in the past, the other is looking at the future, right? So skilling yourself and keeping yourself armed for the future is very, very important. Okay, so learn a new language, learn a foreign language, learn a new skill, learn digital marketing, something that they don't teach you here. Try and do it outside. You will get a lot of time. When you get into the corporate world, you will suddenly realize that all the pressures that you have in this 2 years in a B school is not there. So the easiest thing is, what should I do with so much time? Should I just go out and party because I have so much time and I have money in hand? May not be. Yes, you will party, but then is there something else which I can augment, which can augment my, my degree? So keep doing it every time throughout throughout your careers. Look for opportunities within your employers who definitely good employers invest a lot of efforts in ensuring that their employees are always armed with the best skill set in the market. Okay, always try to be part of those trainings. Always try to take advantage of your company's further education policies. Okay, keep yourself armed. So that's the second thing, which is skilling yourself. Third thing, which I have already mentioned, take some time out every day, invest in your health. Very, very important. If your health is not good, your productivity will go down. You wake up in the morning with a headache, your productivity goes to dogs that day. You wake up with a with a stomachache, it's gone. So keeping yourself healthy is not about just putting on the running shoes and start running. It's also about the choice that you make about your lifestyle. Okay, lifestyle is food. What kind of food do you eat? What kind of how much everything, your drinking habits, your other addictions and everything. So everything has to be controlled. Your self-confidence should take control over everything, because every time you have to keep yourself fit to be still fighting fit at 60, at 65, at 70 years of age. The only thing that will make you stand out even as age catches up with you is your good health, and the corporates would notice that. So when you sit for an interview, let's say 25 years out of college, okay, what is your recruiter saying, what he will not? So for example, if I sit for an interview for the same position, probably skills may be similar, you may have the same skills as I have, but what will differentiate me with you is how you present yourself. So that's the third thing. And the last thing, which I would think is extremely important as a suggestion to all of you, is in life always work to make your boss redundant. So if you are working with a boss who you cannot make redundant, you are in the wrong place. So personally, I will always work for a boss or a leader who I believe knows more than me and would positively affect my experiences that I want to get over the next whatever time that I would stay invested with him, and then I want to grow into his role, and that guy should be aspiring to grow bigger. If that person is not aspiring to grow bigger, then you're not aligned. So for example, very simple example, in the IT world, if your boss is not aligning himself or herself to get into the wider global world, he's not going to take you global. He's going to keep you local. So always find a good person, who you can work with, and that person has to be your mentor also. You can also have a mentor outside of your work environment, but do have a coach, do have a mentor on whom you invest. So that's all.
Thank you, sir.
That's it.
Yes.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. I hope